The room was quiet, too quiet. Aarav lay on his back, staring at the ceiling as the faint glow of the streetlight leaked through the curtains. He should have been asleep hours ago, but his mind refused to stop. One thought became two. Two became 20, each one shouting louder than the last. What if I made the wrong choice today? What if they were laughing at me? What if I never figure out my life? The more he tried to push the thoughts away, the faster they came back, like waves crashing over and over. He turned over in bed, checked his phone. 2:47 a.m. Tomorrow's alarm was set for 6, another sleepless night. You know that feeling, don't you, when your brain won't let you rest, when you replay conversations, decisions, mistakes, as if finding the perfect answer will finally let you breathe. But it never does. Aarav pressed his palms against his eyes, hoping the darkness behind them would silence the noise in his head. It didn't. Instead, his thoughts drifted to the job interview he had turned down last week. He told himself he wasn't ready, but deep down he knew the truth. He was scared of failing, scared of choosing wrong, scared of being judged. And now, lying here, he couldn't stop wondering, what if that was my only chance? The room seemed smaller somehow, like the air itself was closing in. His breath grew shallow. The weight of every unfinished task, every what if, every unsaid word pressed down on his chest. Finally, he sat up and swung his legs off the bed. In the dark, he walked to the window and opened it just a crack. Cool air rushed in, stinging his face and arms. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, then silence again. And in that silence, one thought rose above the noise, clearer, louder, impossible to ignore. I can't keep living like this. It wasn't a decision yet, but it was the first spark. He didn't know that this single night, this restless, lonely night, would be the moment that started everything. The moment he would look back on months later and say, that was the night I stopped letting my thoughts control me. But for now, he just stood there, breathing in the night air, holding on to that thought like a lifeline. Because somewhere deep inside, he knew change had to begin. Morning came too soon. The alarm buzzed at 6:20 a.m., cruel and loud. Aarav hit snooze, once, twice. By the time he dragged himself out of bed, the sun was already pouring through the curtains. He moved slowly, brushing his teeth, making coffee, staring blankly at the table. His mind wasn't in the room. It was still replaying the night before, still replaying everything. On the walk to work, Aarav kept his headphones in, but barely heard the music. He passed people laughing at a tea stall and wondered, what are they laughing at? Was I walking weird? At the office, the boss asked for volunteers to lead a small project. Aarav's heart jumped. He wanted to raise his hand. He knew he could do it, but then came the thoughts. What if I mess up? What if I freeze in the meeting? What if everyone sees me fail? So he stayed quiet, watched someone else raise their hand, and spent the rest of the day thinking about why he hadn't. By evening, he sat at a cafe with a friend. The friend talked about a new idea he was working on, excited and full of energy. Aarav smiled and nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about all the things he wanted to do. Start a side project, join a gym, call the person he liked. But each thought was followed by 10 reasons not to. Later that night, he walked home slowly. The streets were busy, filled with honking cars and chatter, but he felt alone. He knew he was capable. He had dreams, talent, potential, but every decision felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. And instead of jumping, he kept stepping back. Aarav wasn't lazy. He wasn't unmotivated. He was simply stuck, trapped in a mind that never stopped running. And that's what made it so painful. He wasn't watching life pass by because he wanted to. He was watching it pass by because he couldn't stop thinking long enough to take a step forward. When he reached home, he opened his journal. The pages were filled with half-written plans and crossed-out ideas. He read them one by one. Each plan sounded exciting, but none of them had ever left the page. He put the journal away and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. He could feel that same heaviness again, the same heaviness as last night. And in that quiet moment, he realized something. This wasn't just about one missed job interview. This was his life, and if he didn't do something about it, nothing would ever change. Days turned into weeks. Aarav's routine stayed the same, but inside, something was building. At work, the new project he had stayed quiet about was already showing results. The person who volunteered was getting praise. The boss had even mentioned them in the weekly meeting. Aarav smiled politely, but his stomach tightened. That could have been him. It should have been him. Later that day, a message popped up on his phone. It was from an old friend he hadn't seen in months. "Hey, we're all meeting for dinner tonight. You should come." For a moment, he felt a spark of happiness. But then, as always, the thoughts started. What if they ask what I've been doing? What if I have nothing interesting to say? What if I feel awkward the whole night? He typed, "Sure, I'll come," then erased it. Typed again, erased again. Finally, he just set the phone down and never replied. The next morning, he saw photos of the dinner on social media. His friends were laughing, smiling, living, and once again, Aarav was on the outside looking in. That night, something snapped. He sat in his room with the lights off, scrolling through messages and thinking about everything he had missed because of this invisible cage inside his head. He remembered the job interview he never went to, the project he never volunteered for, the friendship slowly fading because he always said, "Maybe next time." Each memory hurt. It felt like carrying stones in his chest. Heavy, suffocating. He grabbed his journal and started writing furiously. Not plans this time, not lists or goals, just words. He wrote about the fear of making mistakes, the fear of being judged, the fear of choosing wrong and regretting it forever. When he stopped, he stared at the page. It was a mess. Ink smudges, crossed out lines, shaky handwriting, but it was honest. And in that honesty, he saw the truth. He wasn't just overthinking. He was living his entire life inside his head and missing the real world passing by. The thought was terrifying, because what if nothing changed? What if 5 years from now, 10 years from now, he was still here, still stuck, still writing about the life he wished he had? He felt a lump rise in his throat. Tears burned his eyes, but he let them fall. It was the first time he had admitted, even to himself, how much this was costing him. Not just sleep, not just opportunities, but joy, confidence, the chance to actually live. He closed the journal and sat in silence, staring at the wall. Something had to give. Something had to change. The next morning, Aarav didn't go straight home after work. He wandered instead, letting his feet choose the direction. The city was buzzing, people rushing home, horns blaring, the smell of food stalls filling the air. But Aarav felt strangely disconnected from all of it, almost like a ghost moving through someone else's life. Eventually, he found himself in a quiet park, the kind he used to visit as a child. A single wooden bench sat beneath a large banyan tree. He sat down. For the first time all day, he let out a long breath, the kind that feels like you've been holding it for years. An old man was sitting on the other end of the bench, reading a newspaper. He glanced at Aarav and gave a small, warm smile. "You look like you've been carrying the weight of the world," the man said, folding the paper. Aarav hesitated, then nodded. He didn't know why, but the words tumbled out of him. About the job interview, the sleepless nights, the fear of every decision. The man listened silently, not interrupting, not judging. When Aarav finished, there was a long pause. Then the man said, quietly, "Do you know what your problem really is?" Aarav blinked. He wasn't sure if he wanted to hear the answer. "You think too much," the man said with a gentle chuckle. "You live so much inside your head, you've forgotten that life happens out here." He tapped the air between them. Aarav frowned. "I can't help it. My mind just doesn't stop." "Of course it doesn't," the man replied. "It's a mind. Thinking is what it does. But here's the secret. You don't have to listen to every thought it throws at you." Aarav tilted his head, confused. The The man picked up a small stick from the ground and drew a circle in the dirt. "This is your control," he said, pointing inside the circle. "Your actions, your words, what you choose to do next." Then he tapped outside the circle. "This is everything else. Other people's opinions, the past, the future, the what-ifs. You can think about them all day, but you can't change them. And if you spend your life outside this circle, you'll always feel lost." Aarav stared at the circle. The simplicity of it hit him harder than any motivational book he had ever read. "So what do I do?" he asked quietly. "Start small, Satan," the man said. "When a thought comes, ask yourself, is this inside my circle or outside it? If it's inside, act. If it's outside, let it go. And when you can't let go, write it down. Empty it onto paper and give your mind some space to breathe." The old man smiled and stood up, brushing the dust from his clothes. "Life will never stop giving you thoughts," he said as he walked away. "But you get to choose which ones you live by." Aarav sat there long after the man left, staring at the circle in the dirt. It was such a simple idea, but it felt like someone had just opened a window in a room that had been locked for years. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel completely trapped. He felt curious. That night, Aarav tried something different. Before bed, he opened his journal, not to write plans, but to empty his thoughts. Every fear, every worry, every unfinished decision, he poured them all onto the page. When he was done, he closed the book, turned off the light, and lay down. The thoughts still came, but somehow they were quieter, like a storm that was finally starting to pass. The next morning, Aarav woke up earlier than usual. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in soft orange. He sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, thinking about the circle the old man had drawn. Inside the circle, outside the circle. It sounded so simple last night, but now, sitting here, the thoughts were already coming back. What if today is another failure? What if I can't change? He reached for his journal and wrote those thoughts down, just as the man had said, and when he closed the book, he felt a little lighter. Not free, not yet, but lighter. That day at work, something happened. Another opportunity came up, a small chance to present his idea to the team. His heart started racing. The old thoughts came rushing in. What if I stutter? What if everyone thinks it's stupid? What if I make a fool of myself? He took a deep breath. Is this inside my circle or outside? He asked himself. The fear of what people might think? Outside. But raising his hand? Speaking up? That was inside. Before he could overthink, he raised his hand. His voice trembled a little when he spoke, but he made it through. And when he sat down, his chest felt strangely warm, a mix of terror and pride. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Over the next few days, Aarav kept practicing. Every time a thought came, he asked, "Inside my circle or outside?" Sometimes he got it right. Sometimes he didn't. One night, after a long day, he found himself spiraling again, replaying an awkward conversation with a colleague over and over. This time, instead of staying trapped, he grabbed his journal and wrote it out. When he was done, he read the words and realized it was outside his circle. He couldn't change what he'd said. He could only choose what to do next. Slowly, something inside him began to shift. He started going for short walks after work, using them to clear his mind. He began saying yes to small plans with friends, not every time, but sometimes, and each yes felt like a tiny victory. There were bad days, too. Days when the thoughts won, when he canceled plans or stayed up too late worrying. But now, instead of hating himself for it, he tried again the next day. Each time, the cage inside his mind grew just a little wider. Weeks later, Aarav found himself sitting on the same park bench under the banyan tree. This time, he wasn't weighed down. He was calm. He pulled out his journal and flipped through the pages. The first few were filled with fear, frustration, pain. But as the days passed, the words changed. More solutions, more gratitude, More action steps. He smiled to himself. The thoughts hadn't disappeared. They probably never would, but they no longer controlled him the way they once had. Morning light spilled through the curtains, warm and golden, but this time Aarav didn't hit snooze. He stretched, got out of bed, and stood by the window for a moment, just breathing. The thoughts were still there. They always would be. But now, they felt like background noise, not chains. At work, Aarav was different. He spoke up during meetings, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. When he didn't know something, he asked questions instead of staying silent. People noticed. One colleague even said, "You seem more confident these days." Aarav smiled, because he knew it wasn't confidence that had magically appeared. It was action, one small choice at a time, that had built it. That evening, his phone buzzed. A group chat. "Dinner tonight, same place as last time." A few months ago, Aarav would have stared at the message, overthought it, and let it pass. But this time, he typed a simple reply, "I'm in." And he didn't erase it. At dinner, he laughed more than he had in months. The conversation flowed easily. For once, he wasn't replaying every word in his head as soon as he said it. He was there, fully, completely. Walking home that night, the city felt alive in a way it never had before. The same streetlights, the same noise, the same traffic, but everything looked clearer somehow. Because the storm inside him had finally quieted. When he got home, he opened his journal again. On a fresh page, he wrote just 2 words. "Thank you." He didn't need to write more. He knew exactly what it meant. Aarav wasn't perfect. He still had moments of doubt. He still had nights when the thoughts tried to come back louder than before. But now, he had tools. He had a way to catch himself before he drowned. And most importantly, he had learned something powerful. Life doesn't wait. And neither should he. Aarav's story is not just his story. It's yours, too. Because at some point, we've all been where he was, lying awake at night, trapped in a storm of thoughts we can't control, thinking so much about life that we forget to actually live it. But here's the truth. You will never stop thinking, and you don't have to. Your mind is like a garden. Every thought is a seed. Some seeds grow into fear, regret, worry. Others grow into courage, gratitude, and action. You can't stop the wind from blowing seeds into your garden, but you can choose which ones to water. That's what Aarav learned. That's what you can learn too. The next time a thought comes, ask yourself, is this inside my circle or outside it? If it's inside, do something about it. Take the smallest step you can. And if it's outside, write it down, release it. Let it drift away like leaves on a river. You don't have to fix everything today. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to take one step toward clarity, one step toward peace, one step toward the life you've been putting off because of fear. Aarav's life didn't change overnight. Neither will yours. But change isn't about perfection. It's about progress, about choosing to live in the present even when the future is uncertain. So tonight, when the thoughts come, and they will, remember the circle, remember the garden. And choose which thoughts you'll water, because your mind can be your greatest cage, or it can be your greatest freedom. Take a deep breath. Think about the thoughts that have been running through your mind today. Which ones deserve your attention, and which ones are just noise you can finally let go of? If this story made you pause, even for a moment, I want you to do something. Take one step tonight. Write down one thought that's been weighing on you. Decide if it's inside your circle of control. If it is, take action, no matter how small. If it isn't, set it free. And when you're done, come back and tell us in the comments, what thought are you letting go of tonight? What's the first step you're choosing to take? Your answer might inspire someone else to take their step too. If this story touched you, share it with someone you care about, someone who might be lost in their own thoughts right now. Because you never know how far a single story can reach. And if you want more stories like this, stories that help you breathe, act, and grow, make sure you subscribe. We have so many more journeys to share with you. Remember, You don't have to wait for the perfect moment. This moment is enough. Your story can change, but only if you start writing it today.